Hello, brothers and sisters. This week, we will continue our fellowship on God's organic salvation, the life aspect of God's complete salvation. The message title this week is Transformation, Confirmation, Glorification, and Building Up. I know these are big words and you may not know what they mean yet, but don't feel bad. A lot of people don't know what they mean. And by the end of the week, you should have a pretty good understanding of these terms. Now, our intention in covering all these aspects of God's complete salvation is not so that you would become theologians just to be able to explain the terms, but by seeing these different aspects of God's organic salvation, we can cooperate with the Lord so that he can much more easily carry out his salvation in us and get the church that he's after. The first aspect that we'll cover this week is transformation. God's organic salvation is a process, and it goes through multiple steps and stages. This organic salvation starts with regeneration that we saw 2 weeks ago, with receiving the life of God into us in addition to our natural life. Then God's organic salvation continues with sanctification, with God adding his holy nature into us, and with renewing, as we saw last week. Transformation is very much related to both sanctification and renewing, as we'll see from the verses. Sanctification is a matter of God dispensing his holy nature into us. As the holy God is dispensed into us and fills us up, then we spontaneously become holy. And as the God who is new and is newness himself is dispensed into us, then we are made new. So transformation is also a matter of dispensing, but it speaks to a different aspect of God's organic salvation. Transformation is a change in our element and constitution that results in a change in expression. So Romans 12:2 says, "And do not be fashioned according to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and well-pleasing and perfect." So we need to be transformed by the renewing of the mind. Paul in this verse combines both transformation and renewing together because they're both a matter of God himself being dispensed into our being, specifically into our mind. Now, you're familiar with these three circles: body, soul, and spirit. This is a diagram of a man. We have our body, our outward part, our soul is our mind, emotion, will, and then our spirit is the deepest part of our being. In God's salvation, he wants to come into us and dispense himself right into our spirit and fill up our spirit. This sanctifies us, this regenerates us, this renews us, but that's not the end of the process. From our spirit, God wants to spread out into our soul. He wants to get into our mind, into our thoughts, into our way of thinking. He wants to get into our feelings, what we love, so that we become holy, that we become new like God, and also that we would be transformed. And transformation is a change in our element. It's a change in our constitution. The more God gets into us, the more God constitutes us, the more this changes us to be in his image. Now, let me give you a little example of what transformation is. If you pay attention when you're walking around here in Colorado, if you look in any kind of crushed gravel beds or stones along the field, you'll see pieces of these semi-precious stones called petrified wood. And what this is, it's actually pieces of wood that got buried in a volcanic explosion many millions of years ago. There was an explosion in the Rocky Mountains that blasted across Centennial and Parker and Franktown out to the southeast. And as this wood got trapped under the lava and the ash, it was put into a position, you could consider that some kind of sanctification, a position to be transformed. Then water percolated through the lava and ash, picking up lots of minerals, including silicon, and then it soaked into the wood. And then as the water evaporated, it left behind minerals in the wood. And gradually, over many years, the very element in the cells of the wood got replaced by silicon. So this is now a semi-precious stone. It really looks like a piece of wood. You can see the bark on these pieces of wood. You can see, here's a bigger chunk. You can see the bark here. You can see the grains in the wood. So it's a piece of wood, and yet it's been transformed in its element. Okay, it was something that would rot very easily, that would burn up. Now it's something that is semi-precious. It's something that will last a very, very long time because it's had a much more precious element deposited into it. Here's a beautiful piece I found out in the field. It's got these crystals inside, again, from, a little knot or hollow in the wood, just being replaced by crystals over time. So this is an example of how God, over a long period of time, dispenses himself into us, and drop by drop, bit by bit, one little element by one little element, he gets constituted into us and changes our very nature so that we would express him.